Walt rocked forward 3 times before he could get out of his recliner. On the 4th try, he made it, grabbing the lamp table on the way up so he wouldn't tip. He'd been doing that little rock and grab for 2 years and calling it old age. It wasn't. That struggle is a measurable warning, and there's an actual number behind it. If getting out of a chair has slowly turned into something you plan for, brace for, and push through, your body is flagging something specific, and it's flagging it years before a fall ever makes it obvious. Here's what I'm going to give you. A 30-second test you can do at home tonight that tells you your real risk in a single number. Then, the one change of position that makes the very next time you stand up dramatically easier, even with arthritis, even after 70. Then, 2 60-second exercises you can do from a chair to make the change stick. And finally, the one thing on your dinner plate that decides whether any of it holds. The position change at the center of this is something physical therapists have taught for decades, and most people have never once been shown it. By the end, you won't stand up any other way again. Let me tell you why I care about a recliner so much. In the emergency room, I met a lot of Walts, but I almost never met them at the recliner stage. I met them after the fall, on a backboard with a broken hip. And here's the thing that stayed with me over the years. Almost every one of them had been rocking and grabbing to get out of chairs for months or years first. The chair was warning them the whole time. Nobody read the warning. So today we're going to read it early, while it's still just a chair and not yet a hospital bed. Now, the belief I want to break first, because everything else depends on it. Most people think standing up gets hard because they're getting weak. Strength is part of it, but it is not the main thing failing. And that misunderstanding is exactly why just try harder never works. What actually fails first isn't strength. It's power. And power and strength are not the same thing. Strength is how much force your muscles can produce if you have all the time in the world. Power is how fast you can produce it. Standing up is not a strength task. It's a power task. You have to generate a burst of force in under 2 seconds to beat gravity and get your hips up and moving. And here's what most people never hear. Power fades earlier and faster than strength as we age. The muscle fibers responsible for quick, forceful movement, the fast twitch fibers, are the first to shrink and go quiet. Research on skeletal muscle in older adults has shown those fast fibers can produce roughly 4 times the power of the slow ones. And they're exactly the ones we lose first. That same body of research found that older adults with low muscle power had 2 to 3 times the risk of serious mobility problems compared to those with low strength. Read that again. Power predicted trouble better than strength did. So when standing feels hard, your body isn't just weak, it's slow. It has lost its burst. And that is a very different problem to fix, because you fix slowness with quick, targeted activation, not with grinding effort. That's the reframe. This isn't about age, and it isn't only about strength. It's about power, position, and one number you can measure. Let's get you that number. Here's the test, and I want you to actually plan to do it. It's called the 30-second chair stand, and it's the same test the CDC uses in its official fall prevention program for clinicians. You'll need a straight-backed chair against a wall so it can't slide, and a clock with a second hand or a phone timer. Sit in the middle of the seat, back straight, feet flat on the floor, arms crossed over your chest so your hands can't help you. When the timer starts, stand all the way up and sit all the way down, over and over, as many full stands as you can in 30 seconds. Arms stay crossed the whole time. Count each time you come to full standing. Now here's what the number means, and this is the part worth writing down, because the cutoff changes with age. These are the CDC's below average marks, the scores that signal a real increased risk of falling. For a man 65 to 69, fewer than 12 stands is below average. For a woman that age, fewer than 11. For a man 70 to 74, under 12. For a woman, under 10. Men 75 to 79, under 11, women under 10. Men 80 to 84, under 10, women under 9. If you land under the line for your age, that is not a verdict. It's a starting point, a baseline you can move. And here's the useful part. You can do this test again in 2 weeks and watch the number climb. Very few things in senior health give you a clear, honest score you can improve on your own. This is one of them. While you're counting, notice more than just the number, because the how tells you as much as the total. Did you have to rock forward 2 or 3 times to break free of the seat? That's a power problem. The fast burst is gone. Do you list to one side as you come up, or catch yourself with a hand even though your arms are supposed to stay crossed? That's the deep core brace failing. Do your knees ache and slow you down? That's the joint and the arthritis piece. You're not just getting a score, you're watching in real time which part of the machine needs the most work, and every one of those parts is something we're about to fix. This is also quietly the most shareable minute of this whole video. Tonight, sit your husband down, or your father, or your neighbor who's been rocking out of his chair, and time them. If they come up short, you didn't scare them. You found the problem while it's still fixable. That's the whole game. So do the test, note the number, and let's make that number go up. And the fastest way to move it, the change you'll feel on the very next stand, isn't an exercise at all. It's where your nose goes. This is the trick I promised you. It's called nose over toes, and once you understand why it works, you will never fight your way out of a chair again. Standing up, done the way most people do it, is a battle against physics that you cannot win by trying harder. Watch how most people stand. They sit up tall, chest upright, and push straight up, trying to rise vertically like an elevator. That is the hard way, and here's exactly why. Think of your body like a crane lifting a load. A crane can only lift safely when the load is directly over its base. Swing that load out in front, and even a powerful crane strains and tips. When you sit upright and try to stand straight up, your body weight, your center of gravity, is sitting behind your feet, out over the chair. You're the crane trying to lift a load that isn't over its base, so your legs strain, you wobble at the top, and you reach for the armrest or throw yourself forward for momentum. It feels like weakness. It's actually just bad positioning. Nose over toes fixes the physics before you ever engage a muscle. Here's how to do it. Sit toward the front of the chair. First, pull your feet back so your heels are underneath your knees, not out in front of you. This one adjustment alone changes everything, and almost nobody does it. Next, keeping your back straight, hinge forward from your hips and bring your chest down toward your knees until your nose is directly over your toes. Not near your toes, over them. You'll feel your weight roll forward onto the balls of your feet. That's the load moving over the base. Now, from there, press down through your heels and stand. Don't think about lifting. The lift is already halfway done. You just rise. Try it right now if you're sitting down. Feet back under the knees, hinge forward, nose over toes, feel the weight shift, then stand. Do it 5 times. Most people feel it drop by half on the very first attempt. Some describe it as feeling lifted rather than lifting themselves. That feeling is just physics finally working with you instead of against you. Now, the mistakes, because 2 of them will rob you of the whole effect. The first and biggest, not leaning far enough. People dip their chin a couple inches, keep the chest mostly upright, and try to stand. That doesn't move the load over the feet, so it doesn't work, and they decide the trick is useless. The lean has to be committed. Your chest comes down nearly to your thighs. Your nose is genuinely over your toes. The second mistake is rushing it. This is smooth, not explosive. Lean. Feel the shift. Then rise over about 2 to 3 seconds. And if you're afraid leaning forward will tip you out of the chair, I understand the fear. But as long as your feet are flat and pulled back under your knees, gravity is pulling you down onto your feet, not out onto the floor. The position is stable. Trust it. Use this every single time you stand for the rest of your life. Off the couch, off the toilet, out of the car. It doesn't just make standing easier today. It takes strain off your knees, and it removes the exact moment, that wobble at the top, when most chair-related falls actually happen. Physical therapists teach this to nearly every older patient they see, and almost every one of them says the same thing. I wish someone had shown me this 10 years ago. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. The armrests are right there. What's wrong with using them? Let me answer that honestly, because this is the habit that quietly does the most damage. Pushing off the armrests isn't cheating, and it isn't shameful. But every time your arms do the work, your legs and core don't, and a muscle that isn't asked to work gets quieter, not stronger. So the armrest feels like help today and costs you strength tomorrow. It's like paying a bill with a credit card every month and never looking at the balance. The interest is compounding the whole time. Nose over toes is the opposite. It makes the stand easy by using better physics, not by handing the job to your arms. So your legs stay in the game and keep getting stronger. Use the position, not the push. If you truly need a little help while you're rebuilding, press down on your own thighs instead of the chair. So at least your legs are still doing most of the lifting. So the position gives you the instant win, but a technique sits on top of muscle, and if the muscle underneath is asleep, the technique can only do so much. So let's wake it up, starting with the muscles that generate the lift. Here's a thing most people don't realize. After years of sitting, the big movers for standing, the muscles on the front of your thighs and the muscles you're sitting on right now, don't just get weak. They go quiet. Physical therapists call it muscle dormancy. The muscle isn't damaged. It's still there. But the brain has slowly stopped sending it a strong signal, the way a phone line goes faint before it goes dead. And a dormant muscle can be woken up faster than a truly weak one can be rebuilt, which is why some people feel a difference in a single week. Here's the wake-up, and no one watching would even notice you doing it. Sit tall, feet flat, knees bent at a right angle. Without lifting your feet, do two things at once. Squeeze the muscles on the front of both thighs as hard as you can, like you're pressing your knees down and pulling your kneecaps up at the same time. And squeeze the muscles you're sitting on, your glutes, together, as if you were trying to hold a coin between them. Squeeze both together hard for 5 full seconds. You should feel your hips lift a hair off the seat. Then let go completely. Do 10. The one mistake that wastes this is squeezing softly. If you're not sure it's working, put one hand on the front of your thigh and one hand underneath you and squeeze. Both should turn firm under your palms. If they stay soft, you're not pushing hard enough. And breathe. Don't hold your breath because a muscle can't fire fully without oxygen. You'll know it's working when you feel warmth spread across the fronts of your thighs, maybe a little burn by the 6th rep, maybe a small tremor in the legs. That tremor isn't weakness. That's a sleeping muscle firing at full output, probably for the first time in years. Do 10 in the morning and 10 in the afternoon. Inside 2 weeks, the lift out of a chair starts to feel powered instead of forced. That handles the engine. Now the part that keeps you from tipping, and it's a completely different muscle. Even with strong legs, if your trunk isn't braced, you wobble at the top of the stand, list to one side, and in the worst case, go down before you're fully up. The muscle that braces you isn't the six-pack muscle you can see. It's a deep one underneath, wrapped around your middle like a corset, called the transverse abdominis. In most people over 70, it has stopped pulling its weight, because for years the outer muscles have been covering for it. And here's the catch. Sit-ups and crunches make it worse, because they train those outer muscles to keep taking over. Waking the deep one takes a small, specific move. Sit tall, feet flat. Breathe all the way out. Push every bit of air out until your belly goes flat. Now gently draw your belly button in toward your spine, like you're zipping up a pair of pants that's a size too tight. It's not a hard suck-in, and it's not your chest. It's a low, slow, deliberate pull right where a belt sits. Hold that draw for 10 seconds while you keep breathing shallowly through your ribs. Ribs moving, belly staying pulled in. Do 6. The mistake here is sucking up high with your chest, which recruits exactly the wrong muscles. The signal you want is low and deep, below the belly button. If you feel it up high, you've got the wrong muscle. Do this daily, and within 2 weeks the wobble fades and standing feels controlled instead of shaky. Bonus, this same muscle steadies your walking and your posture all day long, so you get balance you can feel well beyond the chair. Now, none of this holds without fuel, and this is the piece the original story of just exercise more almost always leaves out. Muscle is built from protein. And here's the part that surprises people. Older adults actually need more protein per pound than younger adults, not less. The standard recommendation for a younger adult is about 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight a day. For older adults, nutrition guidance from the U.S. Administration for Community Living points to roughly 1 to 1.2 grams per kilogram. That's a 25 to 50% bump. Precisely because aging muscle is harder to build and easier to lose. And it's not just the total, it's the spread. Your body can only put so much protein toward muscle at one sitting, so a huge steak at dinner and toast and coffee mornings waste most of the day. The fix is simple. Get a real source of protein at every meal, breakfast included. Eggs or Greek yogurt in the morning, not just carbs. A palm-sized portion of something like eggs, yogurt, fish, chicken, beans, or cottage cheese at each of your 3 meals gets most older adults where they need to be. Do the exercises with no protein to build on, and you're revving an engine with an empty tank. And one small thing that sits right next to protein: water. Muscles that are even mildly dehydrated fatigue faster and cramp more easily, and older bodies feel thirst less reliably. So it's easy to run a quiet deficit without noticing. This matters for standing in a very specific way. Remember I mentioned that feeling lightheaded when you rise can be your blood pressure dropping? Being low on fluids makes that drop worse. So a glass of water with each meal isn't a wellness cliche here. It's part of the same system that gets you out of the chair steadily. Let me pause here because I've handed you a lot and I don't want to leave you rattled. If you came up short on that chair stand test, you are not fragile and you are not headed for a nursing home. What you found is a muscle and position problem, and those are among the most fixable problems in all of senior health. This is genuinely reversible, often quickly, and you don't need to do all of this perfectly. You don't need perfection here. You need the next useful step. One better stand today. 1 point higher on the testing 2 weeks, small, repeated, in the right direction. That's what actually changes the trajectory. I think of a woman named Dorothy, 71, a retired librarian, who first counted her chair stands out of stubbornness more than hope. She got 8. She was under the line for her age and it frightened her. But she didn't try to become an athlete. She used nose over toes at every stand, did the 2 little exercises while her coffee brewed, and put an egg on her breakfast plate. 2 weeks later she counted again. 13. Same woman, same knees, same arthritis. All that changed was position. A few minutes of waking muscle and a bit of protein. That's the whole point. You are almost certainly stronger than your last stand made you feel. You just haven't been standing in a way that lets that strength show up. But I do want to be clear about when a struggle to stand is more than a training problem, because a few situations deserve real attention. If standing up regularly makes you dizzy or lightheaded, that can be your blood pressure dropping when you rise, and that's worth a call to your primary care doctor, not just an exercise. Track your test number weekly, and if it keeps sliding down despite doing the work, bring it up at your next visit and ask specifically for a referral to physical therapy, which Medicare covers for exactly this. If you develop new one-sided weakness, or a leg suddenly gives out, that's a same-day problem. Urgent care or the ER, not something to wait on. And if you or someone you love does fall and can't get up, or hits their head, or can't bear weight afterward, that's a 911 call. Don't try to drive yourself. I saw too many hip fractures made worse by someone toughing it out at home for a day first. Here's why the early warning matters this much. The CDC reports that more than 1 in 4 Americans over 65 falls every year. That falls drive about 3 million emergency room visits annually, and that roughly 319,000 older adults are hospitalized for a broken hip each year. And this is the number that should stick with you. Falling once roughly doubles your odds of falling again. The chair is where that story starts, quietly, long before the ER. Reading it early is how you stay out of that statistic. Let me tell you what the next few weeks actually feel like, so you know you're on track and don't quit early. Day 1. You'll feel the nose over toes difference immediately. That's the position doing its work, and it costs you nothing to keep. The exercises are slower and quieter, and that's normal. In the first week, the main thing you'll notice is the tremor and the warmth I described. The sign the sleeping muscle is answering the phone again. Somewhere in the second week, most people feel the lift start to change. Less rock, less grab, more of a clean rise. That's usually when the test number moves, which is why I want you retesting at 2 weeks and not sooner. So you're measuring a real change and not a good day. By 4 to 6 weeks, if you've kept the protein up and done the minute-a-day work, the new way of standing stops being something you think about and just becomes how you get up. The trap here is quitting in the first few days because the exercises feel too small to matter. They feel small because they are small. Small and daily is exactly what wakes a dormant muscle. Intense and occasional is what hurts you. So let me compress the whole thing into something you can carry in your head. 4 words. Measure, position, activate, fuel. Measure. Do the 30-second chair stand test and get your honest number. Position. Use nose over toes on every single stand, starting today. Activate. Wake the thigh and glute lift and the deep core brace, 1 minute each, twice a day. Fuel. Protein at every meal so the muscle has something to build from. Measure, position, activate, fuel. That's the entire blueprint. And if you only do one thing after this, do this. The next time you get up from wherever you're sitting, pull your feet back under your knees, bring your nose out over your toes, and rise. Feel the difference on that one stand. Then tonight, do the test, write down your number, and time somebody you love. You're not looking for a perfect score, you're looking for a number you can move, and now you know exactly how to move it. Try nose over toes on your very next stand and tell me in the comments whether it worked the first time.